At the New Year's Eve dinner, a group of relatives were comparing their kids' achievements. I was 25 and still in grad school, while my cousin Sarah was a core employee at a Fortune 500 company. The whole family ganged up on me, calling me a good-for-nothing bookworm. Sarah said proudly, "Our CEO, Mr. Prast. Matthews is dining next door and said he'd come over to meet everyone." A sharp-featured, scholarly man walked through the door, my ex-boyfriend. When I looked up and saw him, I turned to run. He reached out to stop me, his voice cold. "Running away? Have you done something to wrong me?" I clutched my canvas bag, stammering, "No. No, nice to meet you, Mr. Matthews. I'm Sarah's cousin." Heh. He ignored my frantic eye signals, his gaze sweeping over me and growing cooler by the second. My mom glared at me warningly. "Nina Chen, get over here and sit down." I dejectedly shuffled back to my seat, listening to Aunt Linda enthusiastically greeting him. "Mr. Personez. Matthews, we're all family here. Please sit down and eat with us." Ha, as if. This guy had serious germophobia. Sure. I jerked my head up, catching Ethan's slight smirk directed at me. The smile in his eyes held no warmth. If anything, it felt like a threat. He sat in the offered seat of honor, directly across from me at the table. Aunt Linda called the waiter to add more dishes and got Ethan a fresh set of utensils. He didn't touch them, just asked casually, "You're Sarah's cousin?" 06. "What's your name?" Before I could answer, Sarah jumped in. "Mr. Matthews, this is my sister Nina. She's not very good with people. Please don't mind her." Nina is the least accomplished of all our kids. This child is in her 20s and still in school, with no manners at all. Aunt Linda shot me a look, seemingly worried I'd damage Sarah's image in Ethan's mind. But don't worry, our Sarah is completely different from her. Ethan raised an eyebrow slightly. "Is that so?" "Yes, our Sarah is beautiful and well-mannered. She works for you now and has always been the pride of our family." Ethan remained non-committal, his gaze falling on me again. "Still in school, graduate student?" I said weakly, "Yes, 3rd year." "Which school, what major?" I turned my head away, not wanting to engage, pretending I didn't hear. Mom jabbed my ribs while answering for me Lincoln University, industrial design. All the fake information I'd given him before was being exposed. I watched nervously as Ethan's lips curved in that barely there smile. I felt like he was about to pull out a machine gun and mow me down. And demand, "Besides your gender, what information you gave me was actually true?" I was still lost in thought when Ethan suddenly stood up, walked over, and leaned down to push a business card toward me. "Come work at our company after graduation. We have a new project that needs a highly educated person in charge. 06. You'd be perfect." Sarah shot up. "Mr. Macon." "Matthews, are you talking about the collaboration project with Springview?" "But you said I would be the project lead." Ethan had already reached the door. He paused and turned back, his tone casual. "Aren't you beautiful and well-mannered? The company needs a new receptionist. We'll transfer you after New Year's." Ethan left the private dining room. A few sentences had stunned our entire family into silence. A waiter pushed the door open. "Excuse me, about those additional dishes you wanted to order." "Get out," Aunt Linda snapped, then turned to me with a dark expression. "Do you know Mr. Matthews?" I shook my head, never seen him before. Sarah sat in her chair in a daze, as if she still couldn't process what had happened. She was the family's golden child, beautiful from childhood and skilled at charming adults. Every year at family gatherings, she'd be paraded around for praise. This year, she'd changed jobs, and her career was going well. Aunt Linda had specifically booked this New Year's dinner at a 5-star hotel. She'd come to show off. 1 second in heaven, 1 second in hell, that probably described their mood tonight. My mom picked up her teacup, took a sip, and said leisurely, "Well, Sarah shouldn't be too sad. After all, it's still a public company. Being a receptionist still sounds impressive." Dad glared at her. "Say less. Can't you see Sarah's upset? 0. 6. No tact." The New Year's dinner ended on a sour note. Uncle Mike and Aunt Linda went to pay with dark faces. Dad chased after them to fight for the bill, and Mom went to stop him. I stayed behind, quietly packing the leftover ribs to take home for the stray dogs. Just as I reached the door, the lights suddenly dimmed. I instinctively stepped back and saw Ethan step in, closing the door behind him. He stared at me, his tone unfriendly. "Trying to run again?" I tried to play dumb. "Mr. Soff?" "Matthews, what are you talking about? Should I call you Nina Chen or Emma Snow?" He pulled at the corner of his mouth in a cold smile. "Sleep with someone and then disappear without leaving a single real piece of information. Now that I'm standing right here, repeat those breakup reasons you gave me." I apologetically mumbled, "I'm sorry, Mr. Matthews." "Say it." "You're type B blood, I'm also type B blood. I was afraid if we had kids together, they'd turn out to be 2B. 3 years ago, I'd said the exact same thing to Ethan. Back then, he'd foolishly told me I was wrong, he wasn't type B. I'd said, "Then give me your social security number." He'd actually recited his entire SSN without missing a digit. I'd said, "Your SSN is different from mine. We're not compatible." Then I'd decisively blocked him. Snapping back to the present, I met Ethan's icy gaze and gritted my teeth. "Mr. Matthews, lying to you back then was wrong, but we really aren't compatible." "Oh? How so?" "A fortune teller said if I dated someone with the last name Matthews, there'd be bloodshed." Ethan suddenly grabbed my wrist. His palm was burning hot, making me shiver and my heart race. He stared into my eyes, saying each word clearly. "Say one more word of nonsense, and there'll be bloodshed right now." The private room was brightly lit, the light falling on his soft black hair. Those handsome, familiar features now held a cold edge, but they made me think inexplicably of 3 years ago. The room's lights had been dimmed, steam drifting from the bathroom. Ethan was blow-drying my hair, and without realizing it, his warm fingertips had traced down my neck. When he was aroused, the corners of his eyes would turn slightly red. At the height of passion, his beautiful eyes would blur with moisture, like a long spring rain in mountain valleys. Utterly captivating. Thinking of this, I swallowed, "Can't we just part on good terms?" Just then, my phone rang. It was Mom calling, "Nina, are you downstairs feeding stray dogs again?" "Come home. It's so late." "Oh, okay." I hurriedly agreed and hung up, looking at Ethan. "My mom's calling me home." He didn't let go. "Address." "Huh?" "Give me your home address, and take me off your blocked list." Ethan's tone was quite hostile. "Block me again, and I'll come to your house and watch you unblock me." I tearfully removed him from my blocked list and sent him my home address. Unexpectedly, Ethan didn't trust it. "Is this address fake too?" I was outraged. "Don't you trust me at all?" He snorted. "Someone with a criminal record has no right to say that." Knowing I was in the wrong, I silently retracted the fake neighborhood name and apartment number I'd typed, entering my real address. Ethan put away his phone and left, satisfied. Before leaving, he didn't forget to ruffle my hair in retaliation. Walking home through the snow, I fell into memories from 3 years ago. Back then, I'd just finished my second attempt at the graduate entrance exam. My relationship with my family was very strained. I hadn't even gone home for New Year's. I'd traveled to clear my head, but got caught in the pandemic. I was stuck in a hotel room playing games. By chance, I met Ethan, who was trapped in the adjacent room. Maybe it was the suspension bridge effect, or hormones running wild in the confined environment. Anyway, We got together for a while. I didn't know Ethan's real identity then. In my mind, he was a very handsome man with extraordinary talents in certain areas, but with a bunch of quirks. Severe germophobia, wouldn't let me swear, didn't even allow dirty talk, liked to cling while sleeping, and couldn't sleep with the lights off. Later, when the hotel reopened and my exam results came out, I needed to go back to prepare for interviews, so I broke up with him. At the time, I thought we'd never see each other again. As I reached the building entrance, my phone lit up with a new message from Ethan. The cousin who put laxatives in your milk during your first grad school attempt, that was Sarah, wasn't it? I was silent for a moment, didn't reply, just put away my phone and went upstairs. As soon as I entered, I ran into Dad, wearing his coat and standing in the entryway with a dark expression. Mom sat on the sofa, expressionless. The atmosphere in the room was tense. Dad saw me and coldly said, "Come with me right now to your uncle's house to apologize. If Sarah doesn't forgive you, don't bother staying home for New Year's." I didn't respond, silently bending down to change shoes. As soon as I straightened up, Dad slapped me hard across the face. "Are you listening to me? Do you have any respect for your elders?" He hadn't held back. Even though I dodged, his nails scraped my cheek, leaving 2 bloody scratches. Blood droplets hit the floor. I blinked and suddenly smiled. "See, Dad? If you'd said that earlier, I wouldn't have come home at all." "You fucking," Mom sat on the sofa and chimed in sarcastically. "Oh, now you're including me too." "Daniel Chen, since you love Sarah so much, why don't you just have your sister-in-law adopt her? You obviously don't think much of our Nina anyway. Does she need me to think well of her? Acting like a vixen, just one look and she's got Mr. Matthews going after Sarah. Sarah is so excellent, how is she not better than her? 0, 6. Boring. Truly boring. I thought with my head down, if I hadn't heard it myself, who would believe these words came from a father talking about his own daughter? In high school, I was still young and didn't understand these things. I'd anonymously posted about our family situation online. Many people replied telling me to reflect on myself. After all, every parent loves their child. If they treated me this way, I must have done something wrong too. I thought day and night but could never figure out what I'd done wrong. When I couldn't figure it out, I stopped trying. I turned and opened the door, then I'm leaving. I won't disturb your family's New Year's. Who the hell are you threatening? What do you think you are? Dad's shouting was cut off by the door slamming shut. I went downstairs, empty-handed, walked to the community entrance, and took out my phone to search for nearby hotels with available rooms. Nina Chen. Hearing Ethan's voice, I thought I was hallucinating. He got out of his black Lamborghini and quickly walked toward me. "Didn't you go home? Why are you out here again?" His gaze fell on the 2 bloody scratches on my cheek, and his expression immediately darkened. "Who did this?" I accidentally scratched myself. I looked at him hesitantly. "Mr. Matthews, what are you doing guarding my building entrance this late at night instead of going home? Afraid you'd run away." He stared at me intently, like a creditor who'd finally found their debtor boss, only to discover said boss was preparing to skip town again. We were standing very close. A fresh, woody scent came from him, like honeysuckle. I was briefly distracted, then quickly snapped back and started my habitual nonsense. "You chase, I run. I can't escape, even with wings." "Where are you going?" 5 words that made me fall silent. After a long while, I said deflately, "I don't know. Maybe find a hotel for the night and go back to school tomorrow morning." But with New Year's and this being the first year after reopening, every hotel in the city was booked by tourists and people visiting relatives. Bothering friends at this time wouldn't be very convenient either. I was thinking when I heard Ethan's voice, hotels don't have rooms available. "If you don't mind, you can stay at my place for the night." Ethan was wealthier than I'd imagined. The Lamborghini drove all the way to the city's most expensive rich district. We took the elevator up to a large flat on the 19th floor. The living room was bigger than two of my homes combined. Though the decor was extremely minimalist, you could still tell it was expensive. Most importantly, it was spotlessly clean. The floor was so clean it could practically reflect your image. I stood in the entryway looking at my dingy cotton slippers, feeling unusually embarrassed. Ethan seemed oblivious, just brought me new slippers and said calmly, "Change your shoes and come in. I'll turn on the water heater for you to shower first." I stood at the door with my head down, shuffling on the ground. Will this disturb your uncle and aunt? I'm the only one home. Ethan looked at me, his tone matter of fact. I had a fight with my parents and came out to spend New Year's alone. That simple sentence somehow made my nose sting. 3 years ago, during those 2 months we dated, I carefully guarded all my personal information from Ethan. But he held nothing back. That New Year's Eve, we sat drinking together. He asked why I didn't call home. I was evasive and asked him back, "Why don't you call either?" He just smiled, looking a bit lost, and said, "My dad and mom don't like me." Those eyes, made misty by alcohol, looked like a pitiful little puppy. On impulse, I braced myself against the table and leaned in to kiss him. He was still quite innocent then, pushing my shoulders and saying he didn't want a one-night stand. I cupped his face and coaxed. "Then let's date. Okay?" Very officially. That's how our relationship began. "Nina." Ethan's voice came through the sound of water. I snapped back to attention and turned off the shower. I heard him say I left pajamas by the door. A set of plain deep gray men's pajamas that hung loose and oversized on me. When I came out after blow-drying my hair, Ethan had already set out drinks on the dining table. I picked up a beer can and looked at it. "For New Year's? We're just drinking this stuff?" He looked up at me and smirked. "What else did you want to do with me?" 0. 6. That comment was quite suggestive. I didn't dare say anything more, pulled the tab, and gulped down several big mouthfuls. Ethan suddenly asked, "Is it because of me?" I choked and coughed twice. "What?" "The injury on your face, is it because I transferred Sarah, and they're unhappy?" "Not really." "I'm sorry." He looked at me seriously. "I was just angry and didn't consider your situation." I didn't know what to say, so I finally hid behind the beer can and said hurriedly, "It's not your fault." It really wasn't Ethan's fault. In this family, my existence was just to highlight Sarah's bright and beautiful life. When she did well, it contrasted with my incompetence. When she didn't do well, to make her feel better, Dad would find ways to make me do worse. "I owe this to your uncle." He'd said this countless times. If he hadn't dropped out of school to work and given me his spot, I wouldn't be where I am today, and you wouldn't have been born. I owe him for life, and you owe Sarah for life too. As for Mom, I'd known since I was little that she didn't really love me. I was a chess piece she used to compete with Dad, a decoration on her life's game board. When I was small, she ignored me. Later, when my grades improved, she started taking me around to show off. Before my first grad school attempt, Sarah put laxatives in my milk, making me fail miserably. Mom was angry. Despite Dad's desire to let it slide, she insisted on seeking justice for me. Until the usually arrogant Aunt Linda humbled herself and knelt before her, begging her not to pursue Sarah's mistake. The subtle expression of "I've finally gotten my revenge" on Mom's face was something I'd never forget. Later, whenever Aunt Linda made her unhappy, she'd say lightly, "When Nina took her first grad school exam, if it hadn't been She never needed to finish the sentence. It was enough to make Aunt Linda deflate, like a punctured balloon. My pain and despair were weapons she used to fight back against years of humiliation. Very effective, so she used them many times. Lost in these messy memories, I unconsciously drank a lot and became dizzy. In my haze, I felt myself being lifted Ethan, carrying me and placing me on the guest room bed. I weakly grabbed his shoulder and asked hazily, "Mr. Matthews, do you hate me for breaking up with you and lying back then?" He paused, then straightened up. Through my drunken stupor, I couldn't see his expression clearly, only heard the same cold voice as always. "Yes. I hate you." My alcohol tolerance was poor, but I remembered what happened while drunk fairly clearly. When I woke up, it was bright outside and Ethan was nowhere to be seen. Remembering his clear "I hate you," I was terrified and hurriedly changed clothes and fled. Before leaving, I left him a note. I put the pajamas in the washing machine. "Just take them out and dry them. If you think they're too dirty to wear, I'll buy you new ones." After leaving, I went home to pack. Dad wasn't home. Mom sat in the living room watching TV. Seeing me come out with an unopened suitcase, she stood up and pushed Ethan's business card toward me. "Remember to work for Mr. Matthews after graduation. Sarah's been smug for so long, it's time you had some backbone, too." I looked down at the business card in her hand and couldn't help myself. "Mom, what exactly do you see me as? A tool for fighting with Aunt Linda?" She was furious. "Nina Chen, you really don't know what's good for you. Mr. Matthews runs such a big public company. Am I harming you by telling you to work there?" "Whatever." I took the business card and said flatly, "I understand." I returned to school on New Year's Day. I was the only one in the entire dorm building, too scared to turn off the lights at night. On the 5th day, the dorm supervisor returned. She made dumplings and warmly invited me to eat with her. I was holding a small bowl, having just stuffed a plump sauerkraut dumpling in my mouth, when the door buzzer rang. The supervisor went out to answer and quickly returned, smiling and winking at me. "There's a handsome guy looking for you." I was wondering which junior had returned and needed me to open the lab. But when I walked out chewing the dumpling, I ran straight into Ethan's icy glare. I frantically swallowed the dumpling, looking for a napkin to wipe my mouth, when I heard his cold voice, "Keep running." I said guiltily, "Mr. Matthews, is there something you need at our school?" "Looking for you." He kept his hands in his pockets, expression cold. "Didn't you say you'd compensate me for the pajamas?" "How much?" "I'll transfer it via WeChat. 26,000. I burst into tears right there under the dorm building. "Ethan, this is extortion." Finally, not calling me Mr. said, "Matthews?" A hint of amusement flashed in his eyes. "I'm not lying, I still have the purchase record." Then he rattled off a long string of English, apparently some luxury brand I'd never heard of. I gritted my teeth and asked, "Can I pay in installments?" Ethan thought for a moment, then said, "That's possible, but there's a condition." His condition was that after I graduated in June, I'd come work at his company. I thought again of that clear "I hate you" I'd heard when drunk. I felt like he wanted revenge for me, lying to him and dumping him, planning to keep me close to slowly torment me. But Ethan went through a very formal process, had me send him a resume, arranged first and second round interviews, and finally sent me an offer with quite attractive compensation. He said, "I don't want people to think you got in through your relationship with me." I asked weakly, "Isn't that exactly what happened?" "Of course not." Sunlight streamed through the car window. He turned to me and smiled gently. "I want you to come because you're a graduate student from Lincoln University's top program and an outstanding student who won the President's Medal. Believe in your own excellence, Nina." My heartbeat suddenly sped up beyond my control. That afternoon, I was revising my thesis when Sarah suddenly messaged saying she was waiting for me at our school gate. "I'm busy." "What? Do you need Uncle Daniel to personally come and invite you?" I grabbed a jacket and went out. As soon as Sarah saw me, she showed a confident smile. "I saw the offer the company sent you." "Nina, you're not really planning to take that job, are you?" I kept a straight face. "What's it to you?" "Go be a good receptionist." Her smile froze. After a moment, she said somewhat frantically, "You think hooking up with Mr. Matthews makes you special? He's just playing with you." Mr. Matthews already has a fiancée, a well-matched heiress. Don't you think you're pretty pathetic? I nodded, suddenly understanding. You care so much about his marriage prospects, so you like your Mr. Matthews? Sarah snorted. Don't try to pin labels on me. Even though I dislike you, we're still sisters. If you really become his mistress, I'd be embarrassed too. She hailed a cab and dragged me to a restaurant. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, I quickly spotted Ethan with a curly-haired woman in a red dress sitting across from him. Ethan wore a white shirt with rolled-up sleeves, looking relaxed and casual. The woman across from him seemed to say something. Ethan, who had severe germophobia, picked up a crab and carefully extracted the meat, placing it all on her plate. Sarah said smugly, "See? That's Mr. Place, Matthew's real fiancé." I watched carefully for a while and commented, "Mr. Matthew's technique isn't very good." Sarah was confused. That's not how you crack crab. He's wasting so much meat. Not getting the reaction she expected from me, Sarah was clearly dissatisfied. "Nina, you're my sister, but you don't need to pretend in front of me. I know you feel bad, but think about it with your looks and abilities. How could Mr. Matthews give up his well-matched, beautiful fiancée for you?" Yes, you're absolutely right. I nodded perfunctorily. If there's nothing else, I'm going back. I still need to finish revising my thesis. Then I turned and hailed a cab to leave. Sitting in the car, I gave the driver my address. I curled up in the seat, rubbing my chest. There was a sharp pain, but it quickly faded. That night, after finishing my thesis revisions, it was already late. Before bed, I was scrolling through TikTok and actually came across the familiar curly hair and red dress. Ethan's fiancée seemed to be some wealthy heiress. She hadn't posted much content, just a dozen or so posts about a lifestyle ordinary people couldn't reach. The latest one was located at the city's most luxurious 5-star hotel, in the presidential suite on the 68th floor. The image showed her stunningly beautiful face and, in the corner, the faint glow of a laptop screen reflected in the glass window. And clearly masculine hands holding a mouse. Caption, "Spending the night together." Followed by a clinking glasses emoji. The comments were full of envy and praise. I thought about it and added my own, "Wishing you 100 years of happiness." When I was very young, I actually held out hope for my parents' love. After learning from books and friends how other parents treated their children, I would experiment on my parents over and over. Naturally, there were no results. Eventually, I stopped hoping and learned to stay silent in that family that existed in name only. Breaking up with Ethan 3 years ago wasn't because I was tired of him. On the contrary, it was because I was terrified to discover I'd actually fallen for him. In this relationship built on lust and false information, I'd uncontrollably given my heart. What would happen next? Over time, would I have to beg the already bored Ethan for favoritism and attention? So I ran away. I never expected to meet Ethan again. And after our reunion, the feelings I'd suppressed were showing signs of rekindling. The night before my thesis defense, he messaged me, "Let's have dinner together after your defense tomorrow." I didn't reply. The next morning at 10 a.m., another message, "Are you up?" At 10 a.m., has it started? Don't be nervous. At 11 a.m., you ran away again, didn't you? I was annoyed that this guy was disturbing my peace of mind, so I just turned off my phone. Fortunately, I was well prepared for my thesis. Even my usually strict advisor couldn't find fault with it. I successfully completed my defense, and all the professors present looked satisfied. I bowed and thanked them, then headed back to the dorm with my laptop. I immediately saw Ethan standing downstairs. His face was dark. As soon as he saw me, he said through gritted teeth, "Turning off your phone, why don't you just block me like 3 years ago?" I thought for a moment, that's not impossible either. Ethan's expression grew even darker. "You really dare? Is there something you need from me, Mr. Matthews?" Ethan frowned, looking me up and down for a moment. He seemed to want to say something, but ultimately swallowed it back. He just said, "I reserved a table at a restaurant to celebrate your defense being over and having free time now." I was about to politely decline. "Thank you for your kindness, Mr. Matthews, but it's that Italian place you said in your social media you wanted to try but couldn't get a reservation." I swallowed and said tearfully, "But I'm already very hungry. Let's leave right now." Since he was planning to get revenge on me anyway, having one last meal wasn't too much to ask, right? With the mindset of eating my last meal, I enjoyed myself thoroughly while Ethan sat across from me peeling shrimp. The sweet, plump shrimp meat, dipped in sauce, was placed on the plate in front of me. He had a faint smile at the corners of his mouth, as if feeding some small animal. "If you like it, eat more." If I hadn't seen him cracking crab for his fiancée that day, I might have been briefly moved and flustered again. After eating and drinking my fill, I'd finished most of a bottle of wine and was dizzy as I got into Ethan's new orange Panamera. He drove while I leaned back in my seat with my eyes closed, saying nothing. Finally, the car stopped outside the school. Cold wind blew in through the window crack, gradually clearing my mind. But before I could open my eyes, I felt something warm touch my lips. The next second, I pushed Ethan away hard. Seeing his somewhat panicked but forcibly calm expression, I wiped my lips and looked up. "Ethan, don't you think what you're doing is disgusting?" The color drained from his face. He stared at me directly, and after a long moment, said somewhat hoarsely, "What did you say?" 3 years ago, using fake information to deceive you and not being serious about our relationship at first was my fault. I admit that back then it was lust at first sight. I thought you were good-looking, so I deliberately seduced you. Later breaking up and not telling you the truth, it's normal for you to resent me. If you want revenge, you could use your connections to block my graduation, or wait until I join your company to make things difficult for me. I pinched my palm, took 2 breaths, and tried to suppress the tremor in my voice. Using emotions for revenge, aren't you afraid of hurting the enemy 1,000 while damaging yourself 800? 6. How can you face your fiancé doing this? Ethan was stunned. After a long while, he asked quietly, "What fiancé?" I expected him to deny it, so I took out my phone, found that short video, and handed it to him. Ethan looked for 2 seconds, and his expression gradually became strange. "Why would you think she's my fiancé?" Still won't admit it until he sees the coffin? I was furious and decided to be direct. "That day, you two were eating at a nearby restaurant. I saw it. You even cracked crab for her, though your technique was terrible and wasted a lot of meat." Ethan took a deep breath. That last comment was unnecessary. He leaned over to help me fasten my seatbelt, then drove all the way to a villa. Lights were on in the windows. Ethan had me wait in the car while he got out to knock on the door. After a while, a familiar woman came to answer with an ugly expression. Her curly hair was messy, and her silk nightgown was wrinkled. Looking extremely annoyed, she started scolding as soon as she saw him. "Ethan, did you get your brain kicked by a donkey this late at night? You lonely CEO living alone in your empty house every day. I still have a date." Ethan said coldly, "There's a misunderstanding that needs your help to clear up." Then he dragged her to the car. "Be gentler, my skin is delicate." Being so rough when asking for favors. The woman was dragged over. Looking up and down at the car, she suddenly smiled. "Got a new car? 6. This flashy color doesn't really match your personality. Someone likes it." Ethan opened the car door, revealing me still slightly drunk inside. The woman smiled knowingly and extended a hand to me. "Hello, I'm Ethan's sister, Ivy." I looked completely unconvinced. She got anxious. Really? Same father and mother. Genuine article. It's just that, after our parents divorced, I took my mom's surname. Ethan said, that day I took you to dinner. She saw us. Ivy looked enlightened. Oh, last month. Ethan needed my help with something and specially took me to dinner. Seeing my new manicure, he very attentively helped me crack crab, but his technique was so bad he wasted a lot of meat. Ethan's temple throbbed. The last part was unnecessary, right? So it was a misunderstanding. I pressed my cold hands against my face, rarely feeling embarrassed. Ethan frowned. And that short video you posted, who was that? My new boyfriend. What? You want to control that too? Ivy showed no mercy, raising her chin. I'm not like certain old virgins who had their first relationship at such an old age and then got dumped. Ethan, you're so embarrassing. Don't tell people you're my brother when you go out. With that, she waved and went back inside. The moment she closed the door, I saw a tall figure in the entryway who immediately leaned down to kiss her as soon as she appeared. We really had interrupted her. Ethan got back in the car and we sat facing each other in silence for a while. His voice was somewhat cold. Don't you have anything to say? I hung my head dejectedly. I'm sorry. So you ignored me and turned off your phone because you thought I had a fiancé? I originally wanted to be stubborn, but meeting his serious gaze, I ultimately nodded. What was the favor you asked your sister for? He smiled lightly, secret. I can't tell you yet. I suddenly remembered something important. Do I still need to pay for the pajamas? Nina, can you focus on our relationship for once? I said dejectedly, I'm thinking about our relationship. Aren't those your pajamas? Shut up. The next second, he leaned over to kiss me. The car lights fell into his eyes as his soft lips moved against mine, gradually becoming burning hot. He pressed his forehead against mine, breathing heavily. Don't go back to school tonight, okay? I tried to negotiate. Can I say some dirty talk to set the mood? Ethan frowned. I played hard to get, never mind, I don't want to make things difficult for you. I'll just go back to school. His eyelashes trembled and he compromised. Fine. In the suburban villa's courtyard, moonlight fell on the swing. In the center of the glass greenhouse was a circular hot spring pool. I grabbed Ethan, looking at his reddened eyes, and commanded, "Call me Daddy." He gritted his teeth. Nina, don't push your luck. I withdrew my hand, looking bored. Fine. Since you're so unwilling, I don't need you specifically. The moment I turned around, an arm reached out from behind, hooking my waist as we both fell into the hot spring pool. In the splashing water, he pressed me against the edge of the pool, his eyes misty. Now that you want to run, it's too late. The next day when I woke up, Ethan asked me why I wasn't at school revising my thesis, but had gone to that distant restaurant. I wrapped myself in a blanket, lazily curled up on the sofa. I think you can guess. Sarah again. Ethan's face darkened. You should have called the police when she drugged you and ruined your exam. I laughed. How could I call the police? My mom snatched my phone and pointed at my nose, scolding me. She said she'd finally gotten her revenge if I called the police. How could she keep using this to make Aunt Linda bow to her? I hadn't told Ethan the details of this incident 3 years ago. Bringing it up now, I no longer felt the anger and heartbreak I had then. Only indifference remained. Since we'd gotten this far, I decided to be completely honest with Ethan. Initially giving you fake information was actually just habit. I couldn't bring myself to tell outsiders about my family's twisted situation. Breaking up later was also because of this. Before you, there was someone else I had a crush on for years, but I didn't even dare speak up. Later, he said he liked me too, but I felt scared instead. Any normal person who learned about my family situation wouldn't choose me, right? 0. 6. So when he confessed, I rejected him instead. See, I'm just that terrible when it comes to relationships. Ethan pressed his lips together, his jawline tense, his eyes cold as ice. I'd meant to tell him that I hadn't broken up because I didn't like him. But because I'd found myself falling for him uncontrollably, yet didn't know how to maintain a healthy, intimate relationship. And I had no confidence that this relationship, which began with the suspension bridge effect and was built on lies, could really last. Unexpectedly, the more he listened, the darker his face became. You liked someone else? I tried to explain. That was college, my first crush. We never even got together. His eyes held a wronged expression as he stubbornly said, "No, you can't like anyone else. I've only ever liked you. You have to only like me too." When Ethan got clingy, he was really clingy. I held my forehead. That's all in the past. Of course, I only like you now. Say it again. That's all in the past. Just the second half. I paused for a few seconds, then reacted. But you clearly said you hated me. But I'm easy to appease. Ethan sat across from me, grabbed my wrist and nuzzled it, gradually moving closer. With the most calm, cold expression, he said the most spineless words. As long as you don't leave me and run away again, I'll always love you. Forever and ever, I'll never change my heart. Later, I teased him that he really didn't have any CEO aura. He was like a clingy little dog. He'd lean over to kiss me and ask in a low voice, "Then, are you willing to keep another little dog? Help me." Facing this version of Ethan, I often felt like an old predator. At the end of March, I started working at Ethan's company. He happened to be traveling for business those few days and specifically instructed me that he'd arranged for senior team members to help me get familiar with the work. But after starting work, I discovered that many colleagues in the department looked at me strangely. Soon, I learned the reason from tea room gossip. I heard the new girl Nina is Mr. Packin. Matthew's mistress? Huh? Isn't she a top student from Lincoln University? Top students can be even more shameless when they want to be. Facing a young talent like Miss Matthews, even knowing he has a fiancée, she still threw herself at him, right? Bang. I pushed open the door, looked at the 2 men and 2 women inside, and smiled. Who's throwing themselves at whom? How do you know Mr. Notcom? Matthews has a fiancé. Were you hiding under his bed, listening? The short-haired woman at the edge shouted, "Stop pretending in front of us." Sarah saw it with her own eyes. Saw what? Saw Mr. Nage. Matthews eating with his fiancée and saw you flirting with him, deliberately seducing him. I said, "Oh," and took out my phone. Great, I recorded it all. When Mr. Matthews comes back, you can bring Sarah and ask him directly for confirmation. All 4 people's faces changed color. Sure enough, that afternoon after work, Sarah came to find me. She looked hurt as she said, "Nina, we're blood-related sisters. Do you really have to treat me this way?" After all these years, her skill at reversing black and white remained the same. I thought of when we were children. I was only 4, still innocent. She handed me a little cake, and I ate it without thinking. Then Sarah turned around and tattled to Dad, saying I'd stolen her cake. 6-year-old Sarah had tears in her eyes, sobbing as she asked, "Uncle Daniel, now that you have a little sister, you won't love me most anymore, will you?" Of course not. Dad scolded me a few times, then picked up Sarah and gently coaxed her. "Sarah will always be Uncle Daniel's little princess. Whatever cake you want, Uncle Daniel will buy it for you." In the following 20-plus years, I'd never heard Dad speak to me in such a gentle, caring tone. Thinking of this, I smiled and said coldly, "Don't play the innocent victim with me. I'm not your Uncle Daniel. I don't fall for that." Sarah stiffened, then put on a sincere expression. "Regardless, you're still my sister, our family's only top student. How can I watch you ruin your reputation like this? That's not what your family said on New Year's Eve." I clicked my tongue. "I still remember you called me a bookworm with no manners. Back then, When you put laxatives in my milk, what did you say that I was worthless, except for good grades? And you wanted to destroy my only hope, too. Now it's your turn, Sarah. I sent that recording directly to the company group chat. Dead silence. Not a single person dared speak. Until that evening, when Ethan was probably done with his dinner meeting and tagged HR, draft a termination email for Miss Sarah, and hire a new receptionist. Sarah tried to stay calm, Mr. Clow. Matthews, I haven't violated company policies. Firing me like this violates labor law. How strange. She actually knew about labor law. Ethan said, "Don't worry, I'll pay you the legally required termination compensation, but with your character, you can't possibly continue working here. Oh, and about the parts you falsified on your resume initially, I wasn't planning to pursue it, but I've changed my mind now." He also instructed HR, "In the future, if any companies call for Sarah's background check, tell them the truth." After witnessing Sarah's complete firing process, when I got off work that day, the tea room quartet came to apologize one by one, saying they hadn't recognized the boss's wife. I felt this was inappropriate and discussed it with Ethan that night. Maybe I should just quit. I don't want to work here anymore. It really makes me look like I got the job through connections. I said, but clearly, I got into grad school on my own, published journal papers on my own merit, and I could find a really good job on my own, too. Okay. Ethan had mastered my negotiation techniques. Then, if we can't see each other at the company every day, move in and live with me, okay? 6. I hesitated. But your suburban villa is really far. His eyes lit up as he came over and pressed car keys into my palm. It's fine that orange Panamera was bought for you anyway. You mentioned liking it 3 years ago. I always remembered. Damn. What a calculating man. Who could refuse an orange Panamera? I took the keys and remembered something else, but I was planning to live alone after graduation and bring home that stray dog I've been feeding. Ethan, with his serious germophobia, looked deflated, but reluctantly said, "It's fine. I've always wanted to have a dog, too." I drove my new Panamera to buy a pet carrier and some supplies, planning to go back and pick up the dog. I'd already thought of a name for it, Pudding. But I unexpectedly ran into Dad downstairs. As soon as he saw me, his face darkened and he strode over, demanding, "Sarah lost her job, was that your doing?" I carried the pet carrier and said, flatly, "She's a gossip who spread rumors about her boss behind his back. She deserved it." You still have the nerve to say that? If it weren't for you, Sarah's future would be bright. How could she end up like this? Nina, don't be so selfish. Right. She did poorly on exams before, and you blamed me for doing too well and hurting her feelings. Now she lost her job, and you're blaming me again. What's next if Sarah dies young? Will you blame me for not extending her life? Dad was furious and raised his hand to slap me. Nina, who are you cursing? 6. This slap was too hard and fast for me to dodge. I even tasted a faint sweetness in my mouth. In the ringing in my ears, I lifted the pet carrier and smashed it hard at Dad. The sharp corners scraped his cheek, creating wounds that had appeared on my body many times, only much more serious than mine had ever been. Dad, in his rage, tried to hit me back but was stopped by several neighbors who'd come running. Mr. Johnson from downstairs shouted, "Nina's a grown woman, you really want to beat her to death?" Finally, Dad glared at me fiercely and went upstairs. I crouched down, and the yellow and white stray dog ran out of the bushes, wagging its tail and nuzzling my palm with its head. I'd just put it in the carrier when I looked up to see Mom. She walked over to me and said indifferently, "Getting bold now, even daring to hit your father." I said, and picked up the carrier, heading toward the parking lot. Mom followed me all the way to the Panamera, and her eyes suddenly lit up. "You really are capable now." "Did Mr. Matthews give you this?" "It's strange when you think about it. He runs such a big company. How did he take a liking to you?" Without waiting for my answer, She continued talking to herself. Whatever. Doesn't matter how he took a liking to you. Just seize the opportunity. You've been bullied by Sarah for so many years. Finally time to hold your head high. Next time I have a class reunion, drive this car to pick me up. 06. I opened the car door and carefully put pudding inside, then turned to look at her. No. I'm never coming back here again. Mom looked at me unhappily. Your dad hit you, but I didn't do anything to you, did I? At that New Year's dinner, when you didn't want to talk to Miss Matthews, wasn't it me who smoothed things over for you? This was so absurd that I couldn't help laughing. You know what? I actually stopped caring how Dad treated me long ago. What I could never understand was we were connected by blood for 10 months, so why couldn't you love me? Why did you only see me as a tool for showing off? I pressed the back of my hand against the hot, painful slap mark on my cheek, but now none of that matters. I don't care about you anymore. All that education really gave you twisted logic for such unfilial words. Mom sneered. No matter what, you crawled out of my belly. Nina, you owe me your life. If I could choose, I would never have chosen you as my mother. I stared at her, saying each word clearly. Janet Sue, I wish I could carve out my bones and flesh to return this life to you. She met my gaze, froze for a moment, cursed under her breath, and turned to leave. I got in the car and slammed the door hard, seeing my eyes full of unshed tears in the rearview mirror. Other people's love and devotion could never be forced. When I was little, the person I envied most was Sarah. At least Uncle Mike and Aunt Linda always showed her unconditional favoritism and protection. What she could get effortlessly was something I could never catch no matter how hard I tried. Fortunately, I'd grown up now. Some things not getting them didn't mean you couldn't live. When I got back, it was already evening. Ethan stood waiting by the door. Seeing the swollen handprint on my cheek, his eyes immediately turned cold. If you tell me again that you accidentally did this to yourself, don't blame me for personally paying your family a visit. I held my dirty little dog and said quietly, yeah, Dad hit me. But I hit back. He's hurt worse than me. Ethan's voice held suppressed anger and regret. Is it because I fired Sarah? Not really. Without this incident, there would have been another time Sarah was unhappy. Whenever she's in a bad mood, it's definitely my fault. But I'll never go back there again. I finally suppressed the urge to cry and looked up at Ethan. Take me home. Ethan held my hand with one hand and carried the filthy pudding with the other, his expression grave as we entered the villa. His germophobia was really severe, but he never let go the entire time. Pudding sensed his mood and tried to appease him by licking his hand. Ethan's face got even uglier. For my wife's sake, I'll forgive this transgression once. He spoke to the dog. From now on, until you're clean, don't touch me. Pudding tilted its head and looked at him for a while, then suddenly stuck out its tongue and licked his cheek. He immediately stood up, carried it into the bathroom, then came out with a dark expression. When are we giving it a bath? That night, I washed the little stray dog until it was squeaky clean and set up its bed next to mine. Ethan came over with an ice pack for my face, looking down as he asked, if you ever need to go back there, take me with you, okay? What, you want to go back and fight with my dad? I smiled, then grimaced as it pulled at the injury on my cheek. Ethan's voice was icy. He doesn't deserve to be your father. Let's not talk about that. I started being very inappropriately handsy. I'm not sleepy at all tonight. How about we work up some sleepiness together? Honey? Ethan's Adam's apple bobbed, and his eyes reddened. Don't call me that randomly. Honey, my face hurts. I whined, ice packs don't work. I need heat therapy. Ethan looked at me, blinked, and after understanding what I meant, his ears turned completely red. Nina, you... I cupped his face and kissed him, mimicking his tone from 3 years ago. Don't say such things, dirty language. What if someone hears? It would be bad. After mimicking him, I couldn't help laughing. Yes, I know, I'm too forward. But this is your villa. You old-fashioned guy, nobody will hear. After a quiet moment, Ethan suddenly leaned over and whispered something in my ear. His burning breath against my ear traveled down my neck, making me tingle all over. Through his passion-filled eyes, mist spilled out and, mixed with moonlight, gently filled every corner of the room. Sometime later, Mr. Johnson from downstairs suddenly contacted me on WeChat. Nina, your dad was taken away by police. I was both shocked and delighted. What happened? Seems like your dad was gambling, owed someone a few $100s and wouldn't pay. He'd been drinking and got angrier thinking about it, so he went looking for the guy with a knife to demand the money. The neighbor said, I heard this could be serious if the other party doesn't agree to settle. Your dad might get charged with armed robbery. Your mom's talking about divorcing him. This might or might not be related to Ethan. But either way, they weren't important people, so I didn't even think to ask him about it. During this time, Sarah was also having trouble finding work. With falsified information on her resume and a history of spreading rumors about her boss, after background checks, few companies would hire her. I don't know what Sarah was thinking, but in desperation, she actually went to throw herself at Ethan. Sarah and Nina are sisters, and I'm prettier than her. Nina's just a bookworm. What does she know? Mr. Matthews, since you don't even mind Nina, why not consider me? That night, when Ethan came home, his expression was terrible. After showering, he came out and hugged me. She threw herself at me. I immediately pushed her away and threw out my jacket. His tone was cold as ice. I soothingly stroked his hair. Sarah is quite a beauty, though. Didn't you feel anything when she threw herself at you? I did, he said. I wanted to vomit. Ethan continued, I hate Sarah. I blinked. Actually, what she said wasn't completely unreasonable. Admittedly, I have some charm, but you've been in business for years. Haven't you seen many beautiful women? Why would you like me? I thought Ethan might reveal some secret about us meeting as children. Instead, he lowered his eyelashes and said quietly, We're very similar. When I was little, Dad found someone new, and Mom decisively divorced him. But she only took my sister, saying I was like Dad, that we were both worthless Zhou family blood. Dad quickly remarried and had another son and didn't pay much attention to me either. Sometimes when I made him unhappy, he'd lock me in the closet all night. So he was afraid of the dark and never slept with the lights off. I felt my eyes sting, sharp pain spreading from my heart. But that wasn't your fault. Adult matters had nothing to do with you. Ethan came over and hugged me. I've grown up now. I won't dwell on these meaningless things anymore. When we were stuck in that hotel, probably because we had the same aura, I noticed you right away. Later, when you asked me to drink and said you wanted to date me, you don't know how happy I was. He rested his head on my shoulder, nuzzling my cheek affectionately like pudding. Don't leave me again, Nina. I can't endure another 3 years. Sweet reunion. The gleaming glass windows faintly reflected the sweat on my forehead. 3 years of emptiness, no matter how many times we tried, it never seemed completely filled. In June, I returned to school for graduation ceremony. Among the flying confetti, I went on stage to speak as an outstanding graduate. As soon as I came down, I ran straight into Ethan. He held a large bouquet of sunflowers and smiled at me. Congratulations on graduating, Nina. I took the bouquet and studied his expression carefully. You seem nervous? His Adam's apple bobbed twice as he quietly took a small box from his pocket. Opening it revealed a platinum band on black velvet, surrounded by countless small diamonds clustered around a central pink diamond that was so brilliant it was almost blinding. It's a collector-grade pink diamond. I had to treat my sister to dinner and give her a contract before she'd agree to sell it to me, and had a designer create the ring setting. Ethan looked at me nervously and expectantly. Nina, will you marry me? So this was the favor he'd asked Ivy for. I said yes. I've always believed everyone gets equal amounts of good luck. God didn't give me a happy family or parents who loved me unconditionally. But he gave me a smart mind and learning and working abilities second to none. As for emotional deficits, I'd let Ethan fill them all. People who love each other can reunite no matter how far apart. The end.